Maybe if we could all learn Santa's beautiful lesson, maybe there would finally be peace on Earth and goodwill toward man. Hey, it's getting late, and I've got these letters to deliver, and you better be getting home, too. And remember, behave yourselves, because Santa can still look into his magic snowball and see just what you're up to. And now that you know all about him, you can be darn sure that come snow or high water,
Santa Claus is coming to town. You better watch out, you better not cry, you better not pout, I'm telling you why. Santa Claus is coming to town. He's making a list and checking it twice. He's gonna find out who's naughty and nice. Santa Claus is coming to town. He sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. He knows if you've been bad or good, so be good for goodness sake. Oh, you better watch out.
Historically speaking, we know very little about the actual life of St. Nicholas. He was born March 15th, 270 AD in the village of Patera of Myra, which is now known as Kale, located on the southern coast of Turkey. He was an only child of wealthy parents who died during an epidemic, leaving him their inheritance. He was then raised by his uncle to be a devout Christian, and later he became the bishop of Myra. Obeying the teachings of Jesus to sell what you own and give to the poor, St. Nicholas used his inheritance to assist the needy. His reputation for generosity earned him the nickname St. Nicholas the Gift Giver. Some say he was one of the many bishops to appear at the First Council of Nicaea in 325, yet others disagree with this, claiming that his signature doesn't actually appear on any of the historical documents. He died December 6, 343 AD. The anniversary of his death became a celebration known as St. Nicholas Day. Nicholas was so widely honored that thousands of churches were named after him, including 300 in Belgium, 34 in Rome, 23 in the Netherlands, and more than 400 in England. Of the many legends which developed about the life of St. Nicholas, the most common and well-known attributed to his name is the story of a poor widower who had 3 daughters. In those days, a young woman's father had to offer a prospective husband something of value, known as a dowry. Because the father could not afford the dowries for marriage, his daughters would then be destined to a life of slavery or even prostitution. Upon hearing of the poor man's plight, St. Nicholas came by night in secret and tossed 3 purses, one for each daughter, filled with gold coins into the home through an open window. It's said that one of these purses happened to land in a stocking which was hung by the fireplace to dry. This is where we get the tradition of hanging stockings by the fireplace and filling them with gifts. So how did the Christian bishop St. Nicholas of Myra become synonymous with the holly jolly red-suited Santa Claus from the North Pole? The general idea of Santa Claus, which parents and the public share with their children, goes something like this. Santa Claus lives at the North Pole, where he has a workshop filled with little elves who help him to make all the toys that he will deliver for Christmas. He has 8 flying reindeer, 9 including Rudolph, who pull his sleigh. Throughout the year, Santa makes a list of every boy and girl based on whether they have been naughty or nice. Every year on Christmas Eve night, Santa loads up all the toys into his sleigh and flies around the whole world delivering them to all the good boys and girls. He lands on the roof, comes down through the chimney, and places the gifts underneath the Christmas tree so that the children can find them when they wake up on Christmas morning. Santa Claus is also referred to by the names of Old Saint Nick and Kris Kringle. Saint Nick is of course in reference to the actual Saint Nicholas who we've discussed earlier. The name Kris Kringle is derived from the Austrian and German title Christkindl, which translates to the Christ child. The modern title of Santa Claus is a variation that comes from the Dutch name for Saint Nicholas, Sinterklaas. Sinterklaas came to America with the Dutch in the 17th and 18th centuries. The title Santa Claus was first officially referenced in 1773 in the New York Gazette newspaper. The single most influential source for the modern images of Santa Claus came from Clement Clarke Moore's poem A Visit from St. Nicholas, or better known today as The Night Before Christmas. It was published in the Troy, New York Sentinel on December 23, 1823. Many of Santa's modern attributes are established in this poem, such as the riding in a sleigh driven by 8 reindeer, which lands on the roof, entering down through the chimney, and carrying a bag filled with toys. St. Nick, as he's referred to in the poem, is described as being, quote, chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf with a little round belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly, unquote. One of the first artists to define Santa Claus's modern appearance was Thomas Nast, an American cartoonist of the 19th century. Nast illustrated a series of images of Santa, the first of which appeared in Harper's Weekly in 1863. Images of Santa Claus were then further popularized through artist Haddon Sundblom's depiction of him for the Coca-Cola Company's Christmas advertising in the 1930s. Sundblom cited Moore's poem as his inspiration, and he continued to paint portraits of Santa advertisements for the next 33 years. Modern technology has also helped to expand the Santa mythology with websites that now allow children to track Santa Claus on Christmas Eve. The most famous of these is operated by the North American Air Defense Command, known as NORAD, which first began tracking Santa in 1958. This tracking can now be done via the internet from NORAD's website. The history of this started in 1955 when a Sears Roebuck store in Colorado Springs gave out children a number to call a Santa hotline. This number was actually misprinted in the flyer, and children reached the Continental Air Defense Command on Christmas Eve instead. The director of operations at that time, Colonel Harry Shoup, received the first call for Santa, and he responded by telling children that yes, indeed, there were signs on the radar that Santa was heading south from the North Pole. In 1958, a tradition began which continued under the name NORAD Tracks Santa when Canada and the United States jointly created the North American Air Defense Command. In December of 2000, the Weather Channel also built upon the local efforts of TV news stations to provide a national Christmas Eve Santa tracking effort titled Santa Watch. Today there's an application that can be downloaded to your mobile device titled SantaCam FX, in which parents can take pictures or video of their own homes and then Photoshop Santa Claus in later so that it appears that he was actually in the home. The tagline claims, quote, "Prove to your children that Santa exists by creating videos of him in your own home to capture the magic of Christmas," unquote. Writing letters to Santa Claus has also been a Christmas tradition for children for many years. Postal services allow children to mail in written letters to Santa, which may then be answered by the postal workers themselves or by other outside volunteers. One website online advertises Santa Mail. Their advertisement reads, quote, "It's a hard conversation to have with a child, but at some point or another kids are bound to discover that Santa Claus isn't real. Some parents think it's best to tell their kids right away so that they don't have to be disappointed later on, while others like to drag it out until the child finds out on their own. We totally understand you not wanting to burst your kid's bubble, and if you want to prolong this innocent belief a little while longer, we've got just the thing for you. With Santa Mail, you can now order a personalized letter from Mr. Claus himself, customized with your child's name, hometown, and state. There are a handful of different styles to choose from, and it's all just $9.95 with free shipping. That's a steal if you ask us, and hey, it'll put a smile on your child's face for a little longer," unquote. Some consider the story of Santa Claus as just innocent fun that makes the Christmas season more magical for children. Yet others believe that a young child's trust in their parent is far too important to risk jeopardizing over some silly tale. Criticism about the Santa deception is not that it's a simple lie, but rather a complicated series of larger lies. Psychologist Shaylee Ann Scott writes, quote, Are these just innocent white lies that we all tell our kids so that we can see their faces light up with joy as they indulge in the pleasures of make-believe? Or is it a dangerous path that deeply affects our child's capacity to trust adults when they eventually find out the truth?" Unquote. University of Texas psychology professor Jacqueline Woolley writes, quote, "It's the adults who children count on to provide reliable information about the world who introduce them to Santa. Then his existence is further affirmed by friends, books, television, and movies. It is also validated by hard evidence, such as the half-eaten cookies and empty milk glasses on Christmas morning. In other words, children do a great job of scientifically evaluating Santa, and the adults do a great job of duping them." Unquote. Scholars have traced several parallels between Santa Claus and the Norse god Odin, who was said to ride an 8-legged horse through the sky during their Germanic holiday of Yule. Folklorists said that children would place out their shoes filled with carrots and straw for Odin's flying horse to eat, and Odin would show his appreciation by replacing the food with candy and gifts. In Norse tradition, which is a branch of Germanic tradition, the goddess Hertha, also known as Frigg, was said to be the wife of Odin and goddess of the hearth, or the fireplace in the home. It was said that she would descend down through the smoke of the fireplace and into the home. For this reason, the family would leave out milk and pastries as an offering to Hertha, so that she would in turn bless the home. Many parents use the threat of Santa to convince their kids to behave in the month or so leading up to Christmas. They will say things like, "You had better be good because Santa Claus is watching you. He isn't going to bring you anything if you don't behave." So there's this idea of his omniscience being instilled in the mind of the child. Santa knows all and sees all, so to speak. As the popular song goes, he sees you when you're sleeping, he knows when you're awake. He knows if you've been bad or good, so be good for goodness sake. Parents also tell their children to ask Santa for the things they want for Christmas. So whenever a child is in their bed or wherever, making these petitions to the Santa Claus character, what do you think that is? It's a prayer. A prayer is defined as an earnest request or wish or an expression of thanks addressed to God or some other object of worship. Another popular Christmas song about Santa Claus is titled "The Man with the Bag." It includes the following lyrics, quote, "Old Mr. Kringle is soon gonna jingle the bells that'll tingle all your troubles away. Everybody's waiting on the man with the bag because Christmas is coming again. He'll soon be here with the answers to the prayers that you've made through the year." Unquote. So not only are children being trained to make these prayer requests to the Santa Claus figure, but they are also giving him praise and thanks when they wake up on Christmas morning to see all the gifts they've received. Instead of singing about how Santa Claus is coming to town, I'd rather sing about joy to the world, for the Lord has come. I'm not waiting on the man with the bag, but I'm waiting on the Lord Jesus Christ. My thought, and I do believe that this should speak for all those who profess to be true followers of Jesus Christ, is that I would rather train my child to offer their prayers, give glory, honor, and thanks to their Heavenly Father, rather than to a false, non-existent being, namely Santa Claus. Unlike the secular Santa Claus, who is a culmination of pagan mythological legends, the actual life of St. Nicholas points back to Christ and reminds us that he is the true reason for the season.
Joy
nature sing, and heaven and nature sing, and heaven and nature sing. Joy to the world, the Savior reigns. Let men their songs employ, while fields and floods, rocks, hills, and plains repeat the sounding joy, repeat the sounding joy, repeat the sounding joy. He rules the world with truth and grace, and makes the nations prove the glories of his righteousness and wonders of his love.